So let me make a suggestion after listening to the discussion that we had here. I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what this report is and what this report is seeking to do. And what it leads me to believe is that there was inadequate outreach to the community to understand what these recommendations are and what's behind them. For example, I heard several comments about this is going to keep trustees from asking questions about readings, and that's a violation of their rights. The report itself says that trustees always have the opportunity to ask questions about agenda items at Board of Trustees meetings. I heard comments about the social media appendix, or I heard people say, you can't make us do that, we're not going to abide by that. And the report itself says it's important that trustees understand that the guidelines are recommendations only. So I'm going to entertain a motion to continue this item until the meeting on January 26th, and then have a forum here at the college to inform people about what's going on and to have a conversation about what these concerns are.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Trustee Baxter and seconded by Trustee Archuleta that we continue this item until the January 26th meeting. Is there any discussion about this?
Yes, if I may, I believe I seconded the motion, but for what it's worth, I'd like to express some of my concerns for the next meeting, and I'll bring it up again if it shows up. I had quite a bit of remarks and comments and questions the last session, and I don't see any of them implemented. I also asked for a legal opinion on this guideline, and I don't have any knowledge that that was obtained. I think there are some good points in this guideline or policy or whatever we're calling this, but I think it should be something we continue, and if the committee is going to meet up again, that it should be subject to the Brown Act, so the public can come and provide their information, their input at the committee meeting and prior to the January meeting, if there is going to be one made. But there's good improvements suggested here, and I appreciate the committee's work on it. For example, the website. We heard from students. I hear all the time about the district's website. I have a hard time with the website, and the first thing I do is go on search. And I've had friends of mine that have been deterred from signing up and with classes here, or scheduling community meetings. They're great ideas, and I praise them. I have 3 things about this current guideline, and a lot of it was shared tonight with the faculty, staff, community members that were here, and some of it may have not been shared. These 3 things that are bothering me are, one, while scheduling community meetings is a good one, we have to make sure we must make sure that it's not overly political in our scheduling and execution of them. I have to admit, I was very taken back last week when I saw that we had already scheduled our first community meeting in the heart of Board Member Archuleta's Area 2 district, literally days before she files with the city clerk for a challenging re-election campaign, and before this board has even had an opportunity to formally approve this agenda item. It smacks of politics and utilizing taxpayer dollars for campaign purposes, and quite frankly, looks terrible. And future community meetings should not be scheduled in board members' districts right before their re-election campaigns, and at least 6 months before their re-election campaigns. Second, restricting board members in their communication on campus with individuals and groups who might want to discuss ideas, policy issues, or problems with administration or board policies.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? The first part of that?
Restricting board members in their communications on campus with individuals and groups who might want to discuss ideas, policy issues, or problems with administration or board policies smacks of micromanagement and big brother government. If an individual or group wants to meet with me to share an idea or a concern, I shouldn't have to work through the superintendent's office to schedule the meeting and be required to invite all of my board colleagues to attend. That's unfair to the group and the individual, and quite frankly, goes against our effort here to maintain open communication. And third, I have issue with the social media recommended guidelines, as I've expressed before, that restrict my First Amendment and our First Amendment right to discuss opinions on matters pending before the board. Trustees should be permitted to use social media as a way to measure constituent opinion. How else are we supposed to seek out the community's diverse needs and interests and encourage their participation in helping establish policies as their elected representatives? And this action also smacks of micromanagement and big brother government. If I want to send out a tweet or blast email regarding my personal opinion as a board member in support or opposition to something on our board agenda, I should be able to do so. Or if my constituents want to provide their input, they should be able to do so. This suggests...
Are you suggesting that
I'm sorry, I believe I have the floor. If you don't mind, I'll finish and I'll yield back to you, President Otto, and I'll answer any questions you may have on my comments. If I want to send out, and as I mentioned, this guideline, really, this suggested guideline to force the board to all march lockstep in the same direction on all agenda items is not realistic and quite frankly way too controlling. My constituents of District Area 3 elected me to personally represent them. They didn't elect a team of individuals, nor to rubber stamp the superintendent and board president on everything. While I support continuing this item, I think it's important that we do it in a meaningful way and not disregard comments received by the public. I'm not saying we will. I'm not questioning anybody's intent. I just like to bring to your attention, let us make this a meaningful process and truly take the input that the community has given us and act from there on out. If we end up going with this policy, I will not support it. And I think it is absolutely a risk to our district. And I'm hoping my colleagues and this board will not go forward with an anti-democratic and not so transparent policy and a guideline that really violates the First Amendment. Thank you.
Trustee Archuleta.
You know, Trustee Sia, you are certainly...
Please don't address individual trustees, just address...
Well,
okay.
I'm sorry, I have to respond.
Okay.
But, you know, we're all entitled to voice our opinion. And at every board meeting that I've been at, your opinion is voiced. I think all of our opinions are voiced. It's just really disheartening how here we're working on communication for improving just trustee communications. And what I continue to hear is how you utilize your constituents and you utilize the faculty, the staff, this institution to personalize your agenda. Again, always voicing your personal agenda without disregard for the overall concern of the institution. And it's amazing to me how a thing that is positive, taking the college to the community was a positive effort. Staff placed a lot of time, and I would say that the reason why it was taken to my district was because this was an idea that I presented, just as the idea that you presented in terms of serving the homeless community. You brought that. It was a wonderful initiative. We all support it. You didn't come to us to ask for approval, for consent. You did it because it was something that you felt was important to you. This activity that was held in my district was something that I felt was important to my district. No different than what you have done. But yet, you continue to plant that seed of discord in this board. No matter what this board does to try to improve, you will always find something negative to bring forth. So I don't know how we can function with an individual that continues to make everything negative. And in terms of these recommendations that we have put forth, these are recommendations that if you look at other community college districts, they have very similar guidelines and regulations. So what we have presented here, show you? Okay, we can find other, community colleges. But, and no, as a matter of fact, my own district that I came from, we have the same practices. In fact, yes, it is a courtesy to inform the president of the college that a board member is coming to the institution. It's a sign of respect to the position of that individual. It's good business practice. Maybe something you're not familiar with, but that is what it is. But it's just amazing to me how you continue to always plant that distrust and put things out there that this institution is doing something wrong, that there's wrongdoing going on, basically because you want to make a point. And it saddens me that you continue to behave in that manner month after month.
Comments?
Doug,
Sorry. Did you have a comment?
just wanted to, long meetings have a tendency in putting this item in this agenda. I knew we'd all start, and I support the motion to lay the item over. What I just want to, and I apologize, but sometimes people come in during the process and they immediately say, well, I've read anti-democratic. No, I am not. I want to violate your First Amendment rights. No, I do not. I really don't want to put out misinformation. When this was at the State of the College address last January, when I requested that a ad hoc committee led by then Vice President Otto, supported by, because Doug was the only other existing incumbent, and then to ask Trustee Archuleta, because of her background as a vice president at a community college, it was to take a lot of issues, and my apologies if you don't want to hear this historical, but there is some importance to it because communication was very broad. One trustee was looking at the communications internally among the trustees. Some of us were looking at how we communicate externally with our different constituents groups. That's with the social media or other ways that came about from the past few years about how we can do a better job. And the traditional way of communicating in the bygone era had changed dramatically. So this document really has many things in it, and it was a challenging document. I have no problems laying it over to get more, to more information, to get more information out to people, to give them a comfort level, because the comments about, and sometimes at a college, you don't sometimes see what other colleges do. Many of these, what we talked about here, as was mentioned by Trustee Archuleta, is that it's just standard best practices. It does not violate your First Amendment right. It does not say that you as an elected official cannot speak. And I think that's probably, I've yet to come across an elected official that I've had the ability to say, you're not going to talk. Elected officials are elected by their constituencies. They are going to communicate. But we're trying to have to where people understand what the practices are, how we can communicate better, more efficiently. Because if you have, for example, not that you're trying to limit individuals' comments, but to have from the board a communication flow through a person, in this case the board chair, that will help communicate probably just more effectively. But it's not intended ever to sit there and violate anyone or First Amendment rights, free speech, et cetera, et cetera. So when I hear people trying to connect all those dots, it sometimes is unfortunate. It happens, but if we come back in January, I hope some of the answers some of the questions can be answered, but I also don't want to overlook the good work that many people in many different areas, and again, people haven't even forgotten, or maybe they haven't forgotten, we did a large survey out in the community on how we can better communicate. So the whole intent was better communications from this board to the greater community that this college serves. And so I'm a little bit disappointed in some comments, because as all of a sudden I heard something about during a political season, that suddenly things stop, and I heard all those great buzzwords in today's political environment, Big Brother, that's really not a new term, it's an old term, but how we do things with government. I would just say to that, I'm an elected official, I'm going to speak. I can't stop speaking because I'm going into a re-election. That's not my choice, it's just the election cycle I deal with. But I'm going to still do the business I have as a trustee, elected to do the job. And to suddenly try to manage those areas, I think is just as inappropriate as trying to say that to an elected official, you can't speak to your constituency. But I just don't want to have it lost on people making a jump to suddenly these larger issues that I think are just trying to probably, it gets into a political season, I understand that, but we try to stay away from that as much as we can. I think we've done actually a very good job as a governing board. And so in January, when we come back, hopefully these meetings, which it is intended to have the community come out, have some interaction with them on trying to answer the questions, but many of the comments I heard here today are just not true. Now, you may feel it, and that's why we're going to lay this item over, but your information is lacking on what we're trying to achieve here and what we're actually trying to accomplish. But again, we're not trying to be anti-democratic, and nothing in here really will point to that unless you want to. And it's not trying to be violating your First Amendment rights, and it never will. And again, I'll leave it with this. Trust me, I've never seen anyone successfully tell an elected official they cannot talk. And that's always going to be the way. And we communicate with our constituency, and I don't think anything in here was trying to limit that. We're just trying to, as I started, a very complex issue with many different opinions from many different members of this governing board on how we can better communicate. And this is what they came up with as a committee, and I commend them for that, and I support laying it over, but I don't want people to get suddenly that this is something that it's not. And I heard that many times, and I would love to debate you one-on-one on where you came up with some of those informations. There's some of you in the public that jumped to that, and I feel confident that that would be an easy debate to win. We are trying to communicate better with the community, not worse.
Okay.
Thank you, President Otto.
Trustee Otto, I have some comments.
Trustee Zia?
Thank you. As I stated in my opening remarks, I don't think this is a bad guideline. It just has 3 flawed areas. I think there's good portions, as I mentioned, about the newsletter, about the website, all of which were in the recommendations of our communication consultant. I want to make it better. That's the intent. And to go against what we came up with at our board retreat, to treat each other with civility and respect, I think you clearly demonstrated, Ms. Archuleta, that you didn't do that. I wasn't attacking anybody. I'm not using personal politics. And as I said, it's not questioning anybody's intent. I think we need to make this better and more meaningful. That's why I welcome the public participation in January. And it's really distasteful, I have to say, to hear your remarks. And, that is discouraging. You're right. This document professes and broadcasts that it's putting highest emphasis on transparency. Now, if somebody can't share their criticism of the document, what does that say about the author? I really question that, and I welcome input from the public. We should make this, it's called a democracy, madam. Of course, I'm going to reach out to my constituents, and not only willingly, but gladly. Of course, I'm going to get the internal stakeholders' input if they want to share it with me, which they have, and with the rest of this board. It's called a democracy. Welcome to America, and that's all I have.
Any other comments?
President Otto,
Trustee Baxter?
Mine is not a comment, mine is asking a favor. When I reread this several times today, referred to the study that was presented at the April 2015 board meeting, and I looked all over my office and I can't find a copy of this study. Is it possible before our retreat to receive that copy either
Sure.
electronically or some other way so that I could reread it?
Absolutely. We'll make sure that that happens. I've
Okay,
got a
thank you.
copy of it as well.
President Otto, can we get it before the January meeting, not the retreat? Because the retreat may be next
Get it right
summer.
away? I mean,
Thank you.
it has been moved and seconded that this matter be put over till the January 26th meeting, and that we have a forum, public forum on this subject before that meeting. All in favor, we'll call the roll.
I did not have the information about the form. You want that in the
Yes.
recommendation? So I have that the Board of Trustees lay over the recommendations submitted by the Board of Trustees Ad Hoc Committee on Communications and a public forum.
And that a public forum be held before the January 26th meeting to discuss these issues.
Just to clarify,
I'm
Board
sorry.
President Otto, are we saying that we're going to have 2 meetings, or are we saying we're going to have a forum during the board meeting, before the board meeting?
We're going to have a forum before the board meeting so we can get input, and then we're going to have a board meeting on the 26th. We'll schedule the forum and widely publicize it.
Could I, I'm sorry, point of order, just to clarify, and this meeting, because someone mentioned about with Brown Act, et cetera, this is going to be of the ad hoc committee?
No, this will be just a forum, trustee, and if it needs to be noticed, it can be noticed. We know how to do that. We do that on a regular basis. And so,
Is it of the ad hoc committee that will be leading this, or is it, we were talking about having a meeting of the entire Board of Trustees? That was my question. My assumption is this was going to be a meeting of the ad hoc committee.
yeah, that's fine. Yes, that's fine.
Can we make it subject to the Brown Act?
It
Yeah,
is.
of course, it goes without saying.
The ad hoc committee is not subject to the Brown Act. Ad hoc committees are not subject to the Brown Act.
In this case, because you're receiving input on an action item, it must be agendized and noticed.
Right.
My recommendation to the board would be you have the public forum on the same day as the board meeting, but that's up to you all, because we're going to have a quorum of the board for the forum.
Secretary?
Clarification. This ad hoc committee is not subject to the Brown Act because it's not a standing committee like the audit subcommittee?
That's what Trustee Zia was saying, but I think that it is if it concerns an item that's before the board.
The item is before the board, so
Right.
any further input must be received by the full board.
Right.
Then it should not be under the ad hoc. That is correct. It should be under the full board.
Yeah.
So thank you. There answers my question. This will
Okay.
be a meeting of the full Board of
That's,
Trustees.
and that's fine. It'll be properly noticed as a full board meeting.
Fine for you.
All in favor of, we're going to take a roll call.
Could I read the recommendation again since I added
I don't know, can you?
that the Board of Trustees lay over the recommendations submitted by the Board of Trustees Ad Hoc Committee on Communications until January 26, 2016, and hold a public forum before this meeting. And that the board will hold a public forum, the Board of Trustees. So we identify the difference between the ad hoc.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Yes. Got to do the roll call now.
Yes. Okay, Irma Archuleta,
Aye.
Virginia Baxter.
Aye.
Jeff Kellogg,
Aye.
Otto,
Aye.
and Sunny Zia.
Aye.
Okay, I think that moots 4.3, so we're moving on to the consent agenda. Any item can be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately if a member of the Board of Trustees so requests. Are there any requests to remove any items from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Zia, seconded by trustee Archuleta. Any discussion? A vote, please. Call.
Irma Archuleta,
Aye.
Virginia Baxter,
Aye.
Jeff Kellogg,
Aye.
Doug Otto,
Aye.
Sunny Zia.
Aye.
So we go on to 6.1, which is approval of new board policy 1005 and the deletion of board policy 5005. Can we have a very quick report as to what this is?
President Otto, I believe we skipped item 4.3.
Oh,
Yes, the policy.
sorry. Let me get back.
The revised board policy.
Oh, no, I think that by continuing this, that moots that.
Well, it was a first reading only, but we'll make that note. But
Okay.
this will also come back.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
right.
As action or a first reading, since it is a separate, I mean, it's ingrained in it, but it's,
Yeah,
And
it's
it was
complicated, but I think
existing.
it would come back as a first reading because we didn't consider it this
Yes.
time.
okay.
Okay. So, let me get to where we were. Six point one, the approval of new board policy 1005 and the deletion of board policy 5005. Superintendent President Oakley, can you just give us the
Yes.
Reader's Digest version of what we're doing here?
Yes, Board President Otto, the Reader's Digest version is after examining our freedom of speech policy and comparing it to challenges that have taken place at other colleges and universities, we wanted to make necessary revisions to ensure that the freedom of speech procedures match those which most colleges and universities are having to adapt to ensure that the public has every opportunity possible to express their views on any public college or university within the parameters that, as long as it does not disrupt teaching and learning and the operations of the college.
And I think I heard you say it because this was the right thing to do.
It is always the right thing to do. That's why we're here.
Okay, it is an action item. Can I entertain a motion?
So moved.
So,
Moved by trustee Kellogg, seconded by trustee Baxter, to approve a new board policy and delete the old board policy. They have different numbers, which we've already read. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Irma Archuleta,
Aye.
Virginia Baxter,
aye.
Jeff Kellogg,
Aye.
Doug Otto,
Aye.
Sunny Zia.
We now move on to item 7, to academic senate items. What a treat to be dealing with things that have to do with courses and how kids get through, or students get through this year. So 7.1, new and inactivated courses. Can we have a quick report or something from our academic senate president?
We have 3 items that are coming before you tonight for your approval. The new and inactivated courses, addition to the GE or General Education Plan, and then double counting areas. And again, I want to just let you know before you vote that the curriculum committee under the leadership of Kenna Hellman has done excellent work this semester in following the call to action that our president laid out, trying to increase efficiencies and streamline the process and make our curriculum process more nimble and flexible.
So, entertain a motion on 7.1, new and inactivated courses.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Zia. Is there a second? Second by trustee Archuleta. Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Irma Archuleta,
Aye.
Virginia Baxter,
Aye.
Jeff Kellogg,
Aye.
Doug Otto,
Aye.
Sunny Zia.
Aye.
7.2, the addition to general education plans. Entertain a motion.
So move.
Moved by trustee Baxter, seconded by trustee Kellogg. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Irma Archuleta.
Aye.
Virginia Baxter.
Aye.
Jeff Kellogg. Doug Otto,
Aye.
Sunny Zia.
Aye.
Agenda item 7.3, the double counting areas C and D with the CSU U.S. History, Constitution, and American Ideals graduation requirement. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
It's moved by trustee Archuleta,
Second.
seconded by trustee Kellogg. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Irma Archuleta.
Aye.
Virginia Baxter.
Aye.
Jeff Kellogg,
Aye.
Doug Otto,
Aye.
Sunny Zia.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item 9.1. This is the 2014-2015 District and Measure E financial and performance audits. The recommended action is that the Board of Trustees receive the following 2014-2015 audit reports. First, the district financial audit. Second, the bond financial audit. And third, the bond performance audit. I see we have our auditors here today. Is there a brief presentation that we're going to do?
Yes, I would like to introduce our auditors, but first, before I do that, because I know I'll forget at the end of your presentation, I want to thank the staff that work with the auditors on a day-to-day basis, and that's Mr. John Thompson, our Director of Fiscal Affairs, Ms. Cindy Banker, who is our Deputy Director of Finance and Accounting, and Mr. Bob Raposa, our internal auditor. So without them, I don't know that our audit would be a clean audit. So I kind of just took your thunder away, Gemma and Renee, but I do want to publicly thank them for all their hard work towards this. So with that, I would like to introduce first Ms. Gemma Tuchinski with Vicente Lloyd and Stutzman, who will be giving us the presentation on our financial audits.